I saw firsthand the direct effect that grassroots lobbyists can have on criminal justice policy.
Today is the day that some brother gonna stand in front of you and say, you got the right to remain unsighted. You got the right to actually sit in this building and expect to be respected. I'm hoping that in this democracy, they think that everybody is valuable. That's right. That everybody deserves a chance to be heard. At a certain point, we need to grow our numbers. And we need to grow our numbers fast and steady.
Communities of color right now, since Jim Crow, has been the criminal and justice system. Right?
Okay.
And as a result of that, many of us have been locked out of employment opportunities, out of the democratic process.
That's what they are doing, holding it against us. So what we have to do is fight the fight and let them know that we're not going away. We're going to be here until the law is changed. And that's what we're saying.
Some of you know I introduced and carried legislation last year, the so-called ban the box legislation, getting the bill out of the assembly, but ran into a roadblock in the state senate. But that doesn't mean we give up. You don't give up. I don't give up.
As formerly incarcerated people, we've been told that we have the right to remain silent. But when that suffering starts to impact us negatively, our personal and professional lives, we have an obligation to speak up and regain our place in the democratic process.
Speaking from personal experience, we passed AB 218, the Ban the Box Bill, SB 458, the Youth Gang Database Notification Bill, and SB 530, the Expungement Bill, all in 1 year.
This is nerve-wracking. This is Jesse, the Policy Director for Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. My name is Dorsey Nunn. I'm the Executive Director of Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. But I've been called other things. I was called B39669 from the age of 19 to the age of 31. I spent some of the most violent years in U.S. prison history at San Quentin. You know, I had a nice speech wrote out. But hey, that ain't gonna work here. Check this out. The reason I came up here, is because at a certain time when I was in prison, what I thought I'd seen was the most awful waste of human potential in my entire life. People were discarded. I happened to receive the benefit of learning how to read there. I served an extraordinary long period of time, at least what I thought was a long period of time. And when I got out, I walked less than 100 yards, and I fought for the next 6 years, fighting and contesting abnormal, inhumane prison conditions. When I was released, somebody asked me what was I going to do with my freedom. And I thought it was an extremely poignant question, because I've seen people released and returned over and over again. At a certain point, I recognized that I couldn't improve the conditions unless I could figure out a way to slow down the rate in which people were coming into prison, because it was always overcrowded. So at a certain point, I started figuring out what we needed was a different shift. We needed a paradigm shift. Suppose who I think I am is a lot greater than being somebody else's client. Suppose my fight is for the full restoration of my civil and my human rights. Suppose I don't want to be an offender anymore, and I want you to refer to me as a person. How do I get that privilege back? Suppose I think that my fight should mean, I think the longest distance between me and my equality is in the shoes of a client, in the shoes of somebody else. So I think that what I wanted to do was to actually start organizing formerly incarcerated people to do something different, like to speak in their own voice. And when we spoke, we started talking about ban the box. And when we spoke, when we said we was going to ban the box, that means to get rid of that little question on the application, have you ever been convicted of a felony? You know, and we inspired that. And when we did that, what we did was took that particular challenge from the city of San Francisco, and what we have accomplished at this point is 13 states, 70 cities, and counties, and we got 100 million people in the United States living under the jurisdiction where we banned the box. Hang on, Jesse, here.
Thanks, Dorsey. You've just seen a minute of footage from our Quest for Democracy, our annual lobby day in Sacramento we started last year. You saw some footage from the morning session where formerly incarcerated people and legislators alternated giving speeches at a briefing before an afternoon of lobbying meetings where formerly incarcerated people visited with legislators in their offices to personally speak truth to power. We were able to pass AB 218, the Ban the Box bill, as a direct result of formerly incarcerated people narrating their personal experiences in legislative offices in Sacramento. Now, hundreds more Californians, hundreds of millions of people across the state and across the country will have more hope for employment and more hope for a better life after incarceration. In order to give people more of a voice and more power in Sacramento, we brought to formerly incarcerated people our Policy Academy, a program we started last year where we travel the state of California giving legislative process training specifically for formerly incarcerated people in order to inspire and educate people to bring the knowledge and personal experience of the system and incarceration to the halls of the state capitol. We've been able to train 167 people in the past year over 4 different Policy Academy sessions around the state. We had excellent outcomes where people were able to directly engage, and this year's Quest for Democracy was twice as big, with 350 formerly incarcerated people lobbying in the halls of Sacramento in every single state legislator's office. Now we're ready to expand our program. We start with the Policy Academy, where people get a 1-day crash course in legislative process, aimed at and leveled to the experience of being formerly incarcerated, and we end with our Quest for Democracy, where people personally lobby their legislators. We need a middle. We need funds in order to be able to connect with people and sustain participation in our Policy Academy. We need to be able to take people from an initial training through Facebook, email, and conference calls, all the way of ongoing mentorship.
Okay, so my question is 2 questions. Specifically, where do you expect to put any funding that you get? And I know you say in the middle, but what exactly does that mean? And my second question is, passing legislation is a difficult thing, and things change all the time in California state, the politics. How do you develop and maintain your relationships in Sacramento so that you can actually pass legislation? Because, you know, it can go south because one person doesn't like it. So what are you doing to sustain those relationships? Sorry.
First of all, if we did receive some resources, what we would do is hire another person. The other thing that I think is that poor people have the inability to volunteer, so we would stipend people to actually train them because they need resources in order to survive the training. Sometimes people think that you just can train people and not think that they have families, friends, and other people that are dependent upon them. So I think that we need to stipend the people that we train. What we do in relationship to sustaining that relationship, within Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, we actually have a political a committee in our organization, and we're sending people to Sacramento all the time and maintaining those relationships. But I want you to think a little bit broader because I do have a broader vision. Probably within the last 4 weeks, I was in the White House visiting with staff there talking about getting an executive order to ban the box. Within a matter of days, me and Susan Burton is going to be meeting with the Justice Department and the senior staff for the Reentry Council, and we're going to be talking about how to ban the box through an executive order, and we're going to be talking about housing, education, and all the rest of that. But I don't think that neither Susan nor I could have made this trip if we hadn't received training and if somebody hadn't trained us. The other thing that I think that is real important is that at a certain point, that guy that asked me when I was in prison what I was going to do with my freedom, at the point he asked me that question, I didn't understand that question. That question was really something I ran into later. He was asking me, since he was a lifer, what I was going to do with my privilege. Last night he called me, and what I told him, what I did with my privilege was fight for you for the last 33 years. And the thing that I started off telling them, Jimmy, you are a human being, no matter what they do to you in there. So at a certain point, I hope that I could shift the paradigm where you will see me as a human being as opposed to X anything, that you will see me as a human being as opposed to an offender, because if you don't do that, my kids won't have a chance.
Okay, to add to that?
Thank you. I'm going to let that be the last word from me. No other questions.
Okay, to add to that or done? Okay.
If you have something to say, please, but no
Yeah.
question from me.
So thanks for the excellent question. And I wanted to say that the connection that we're able to offer between formerly incarcerated people and legislators is the central component, the first building block of this whole program we're proposing here. As the policy director at LSPC, I already have the responsibility of tracking 100 criminal justice bills every year, where I have to go to Sacramento frequently, meet with legislative staffers, keep track of what bills are introduced, what they're going to do, and what's happening next with them. The idea here is to add a component of connectivity where our constituency, formerly incarcerated people, can have the skills and knowledge to take leadership in that process, where I can provide information and other people who have the direct personal experience that'll make a difference in the policy process can actually travel to Sacramento as well in order to lead those legislative meetings and testify in those committee hearings.
Thank you for having me.